Mommispace, a place where you can remember who you are in the midst of it all. This podcast gives moms of all stages a voice to share their experiences and the truth that there is no right way to mom.
Those eyes are getting older, and your beauty is growing wonderfully.
Welcome back to Mommispace. Today is episode 2 of season 1, featuring the generations that shape us. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear this episode specifically. You're going to hear from the Allens and Elliots. Well, Allens and Elliott Clan. And these are dear friends of ours. We've known them for many years. And all I have to say is our family would probably be in a really devastated place if we didn't have them. Marianne, specifically the matriarch of the family, has been a incredible mentor and counselor to many of the people that you've actually heard from on this podcast and to myself and my family members. So I'm just so grateful to have them on the show today. We talk about grief and loss and not wanting kids and all of that. So there's some good stuff in there. Anyways, before we dive in, I just wanted to let you know that you can find the Mommispace community on Instagram and Facebook. I post there every day and actually have a lot of fun interacting with you guys. A lot of you have reached out to me and told me, different things about how the podcast has impacted you or how you've just enjoyed being a part of the social media fam, which is so cool. It just makes me feel so good to know that the work I'm putting in is paying off, and you don't even know how much that means to me when you reach out. So please keep doing that. I love talking to new people, meeting new people, so I'll always get back to you if you reach out. Anyways, last thing, please leave a rating and review on iTunes if you enjoy this show at all. It helps get the word out. Thanks, guys. Here we go.
All the history and the prayers that shaped you come back multiplied upon my head, and it carries on all the good and all the bad to keep on adding to our story. Those eyes are getting older.
I'm here with Marianne Allen and Kerry Allen and Melissa Elliott. And Kerry and Melissa have been on the podcast before, but Marianne, the matriarch and the mother of the family, has not, and I've been trying to, probably for a year, to talk to you. And you have probably come up in every single episode of anybody that we're connected to, like especially with the church. So you're a legend now. And so I'm just really excited to have you on. To start, Marianne, I'd love to ask you
to
share.
Like I'm in school.
I am the teacher.
I know,
yeah.
And you're sitting in the teacher chair.
I know. I'll share a picture of the chair I was sitting in. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to start off because I've already talked to Melissa and Kerry a little bit about their motherhood journey and or not desire to have. Yeah. But if you could just share like what your motherhood journey looked like, whether you wanted to have kids or not. And yeah, I just want to kind of hear from your perspective of like what that looked like for you when you were young and what motherhood was like for you, like overall.
When I got married, there was no intention to have children, and I didn't really want them. Brian did. Brian wanted 10 children, and no joke. And I just thought he was kidding and laughed about it. I never wanted to be pregnant. It wasn't so much I didn't want to be a mom, because we did a lot of foster care, and we did a lot of youth stuff, and I love children, but I didn't want to have pregnancy consume my body. And it terrified me to think that a baby would come out down there. Mm-hmm. That didn't seem like that's what it was built
Down
for.
where? I was kidding.
Well, in the Sutherlands. So I couldn't wrap my brain around it.
Yeah.
And so it was terrifying. It was a terrifying thought to have something that big come out of something that didn't seem that big.
That's fair.
So that was really the point to not having children. It wasn't so much the responsibility or the care of them or the loving them. It was what it was going to do to my body. And that was how we started. When I found out I was pregnant the first time with my son, Nathan, I thought I was mentally ill.
Oh, yeah. I remember you saying that.
I thought I was mentally ill because I was really tired all of a sudden, and I had lots of emotion and didn't feel very good, and found myself freaking out. So at the time, my husband didn't have his license, and so he would ride to the
driver's license. Yeah.
He didn't have his license to be a man.
I guess there isn't many other.
So he would ride his bike. We were in Oregon at the time doing Little House on the Prairie. And so he would ride to the library to try to figure out what's wrong with me.
No way.
Yeah, he was really worried. So we decided I was hypoglycemic. So then we started a high protein diet.
God.
And we went, my mom lived up there in Oregon with us, so she was concerned too. Behind my back, they were giddy, thinking I might be pregnant, but I wasn't willing to face that. So finally, I said, go get one of those test things and I'll at least see. And so I did the test, and at the time you had to wait, I think it was 20 minutes.
Oh my God.
And so
it's so weird, I know.
Yeah, you had to do the thing and then wait 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so we didn't read it right at 20 minutes, and it was positive, so I said it was false, and I threw it across the room. Because I thought that I'm not pregnant, because now what people don't understand about that is not only was I pregnant, but now I was crazy. I was mentally ill. So I was thinking I can't have a baby. I didn't connect that the crazy was the hormones.
The mentally ill was the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I was now like a lunatic. And so I made him go back to the store on his bike.
Oh my God.
And get another one to prove it. And then we sat there, tick, 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 tock, bing, you're pregnant. So it was like, I just thought, I can't do it. I won't be capable. It turned out fine. He came out, I willed a C-section to happen. I believe it shouldn't come out from down there. So I do. I believe I willed my uterus to stop. And thank God. And they did a C-section, and I'm so happy that never down there was violated in that way. So that was good. Now the second round of my journey was I was not going to have any more kids. I didn't. One was fine. I did it. Great. He has a kid. We're good. We're having a happy day. And all of a sudden, I was pregnant again. And this is 5 years later. So we not had intended, and that was different. I really didn't want another baby. So that was harder on me emotionally, because I didn't at the time have the support system that I had with Nathan, my son. I didn't have anything. My mom had passed away. I didn't have my sister close. I didn't have any support system that I felt like would help me, because I'm a very needy 8, if you know the Enneagram, and I need a buddy. And Brian worked a lot and was trying to provide. So I was terrified at that point that I would be all alone, and also grieving the fact that my mom didn't get to meet the next baby, which at the time I didn't know. We didn't get to know at the time. I wasn't going to have amnio, and that's what you needed to have.
You just to know the sex, you mean?
Yeah, to know if she was a girl or boy.
Okay.
So that was a really hard, lonely time for me. And then when Melissa was born, I remember her coming out. Brian was beaming, because Brian was just, oh gosh, it was everything to have a baby girl. For me, all I could see was, I said, is she healthy? Yeah. I, again, willed a C-section. Is she healthy? Yes, she was healthy. And then all I could think of was, I can make it till she gets into school, kindergarten. Because it was so overwhelming and daunting to be responsible without any support system, and have Nathan too, and Brian busy. So I was kind of a weenie, in terms of I didn't know how to be a mom of a baby. So Brian, fortunately, is a really good mother. He was a really good mother, and he taught me. He taught me how to be more nurturing, and to be more present, and to be more hands-on, and to be not so afraid. So it was a good match for he and I. My mom had done that with Nate, but Brian and I handled Melissa really well as a team, I think. So that brings us into adulthood, and now I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
I have great kids, and they married great people. So, and I have wonderful grandkids. So it doesn't get better than what I got. So
that's amazing. Thank you for that. So one of
Kiati Wadi didn't get violated.
Kiati Wadi, yeah.
She's perfect.
Yeah, let's talk about that word.
That's true.
Oh my god.
And I'm pleased to say
everything's as it was.
Short of the hysterectomy.
Yeah. So obviously Melissa is the second child that came along. But yeah, so what is that like? What was that like for you?
I don't remember how old, like when I heard that story. I don't know that I've ever heard it all like that I heard like my mom didn't want kids. Which I think is good that I don't remember, because it hasn't ever been devastating to me. We joke about it all the time as though she still doesn't want me, but that like I've never actually felt that. Like, so I guess her not wanting kids didn't affect the 30 years of my existence at all, and that I never felt that like regret or wishing that I wasn't there. Like those thoughts never came to my head. And I've had a couple friends who had like similar experiences and who now have kids and have asked me multiple times, like, what did your mom do to make it so that like you don't feel like crap because she didn't want you? And I was like, oh, just loved me my whole life and made it known that wasn't still the case. Like I've just never, and I don't want kids, so I go to, well, no shit, Sherlock, like, I don't blame you, like, that makes sense. I'm sure that helps, too. Like, I don't know how Nathan feels about it, but I'm sure that helps, that I can understand it. But I always think it's funny that my dad wanted 10 and my mom wanted 0, and they thought that was going to work somehow. Obviously it did, but it felt like there was a conversation missing.
Testimony to our marriage.
Yeah, for sure. But it's never been a negative thing for me, and I mean, I'm glad she kept us, and you know, like there's other choices that she could have made. So I'm glad she didn't, and I'm glad that they messed up those 2 times in their birth control.
It was immaculate.
Oh,
Nothing's
okay.
been touched.
Got it. Oh, it's never been touched. That is pretty impressive. So, yeah.
I just appreciate you guys being so open about that subject alone. Just you, Melissa, not wanting kids, Marianne, you even being okay to say like, yeah, I didn't want them, because I think there are probably a lot of moms who have felt that way or feel that way, or even like you were saying, Melissa, that may still feel that way and they have children and struggling with that. Like, what do I do with that feeling or that shame or what guilt, you know, over that kind of thing? Is there anything that you'd like speak into that?
I didn't ever feel guilty, again, because it wasn't about not wanting the children. It was about not wanting something to possess my body. You could say I'm a bit of, especially back then, a bit of a control freak. And I also think the responsibility was so daunting. And I was really young, even though I was older. I had Melissa when I was 31, I believe.
31, 32-ish.
Yeah, something like that. I still felt really young, and that's based on the tragedies of my past. So losing both parents, taking care of both of them very ill for a very long time. I couldn't take the children part of responsibility. Was I'm going to be taking care of kids from the day that Brian and I met, really.
Wow.
It felt like I had kids, even though, and we were just dating. So we kicked in and took care of my parents, and then as they passed away, I had children, which meant there was no reprieve or release from that. And I think it's probably what drove me to education, because it was like I needed something that said I exist apart from taking care of people, though I became somebody who mentally takes care of people, so or spiritually. So
that's awesome.
So I don't think it's and I guess I think if you're true and honest, then there's a spiritual aspect that I think God comes in and covers. And so I think part of Melissa's testimony about me and how she was affected was based in I was never dishonest about it. I wasn't cruel either. I didn't walk around screaming, I never wanted you, get the hell out of my house.
Yeah.
However, I think our conversations were honest, and I was sharing to her about me, not so much about her. It was about me and my brokenness and my weakness and my frailty and my immaturity when it came to that kind of stuff. I don't know that I've grown up yet.
Yeah, it was never this is the reason I don't want kids, right? Like it wasn't that conversation. No. It was always about her own vulnerability. Yeah. And that. And it started, I wasn't young. I wasn't like 8 or 9, I don't think. But when I remember it is like teenage years too, right? So as a teenager, you're starting to think about those things, even if you're not thinking you're going to do them, hopefully as a teenager, but you're I wasn't thinking at 14 I'm going to have kids soon, but it is that time where you're starting to fantasize about it and think about getting married and having that life. And so I think it was impactful to hear at 14 that it was an option to even think about not wanting kids, though I wasn't until I was 18, 19 that I realized I didn't really want to do that, or maybe even 20, but it still was, I had those formative years of thinking, it's an option to not have kids. Like that just seems like what everyone does. And I think that's what I've experienced a lot with people who have asked me about it, is like my husband specifically, when we were first dating or before we were dating and talking just about like life goals, that was kind of when we started dating and he landed in, I don't want to do the kid thing either. It was, I didn't know until I met you and you said you didn't want kids, that just wasn't what you just did. Like in my mind, I never thought about don't I want kids. You get married and you have kids and then you have grandkids and that's what life looks like. And so then when he met me and heard that, it was like, there's another option to think about and explore here. And so...
And there was, even, because in my, I'm 63 years old, so back everybody had to become a mom.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there anything like that you think, even in the church too, like there's like so much shame.
And brown bread.
What's that?
It's a big deal. Do you have to have kids and brown bread?
Brown bread?
Like wheat bread?
No way. That was a thing?
That was in our church,
Well, we did have
That's so
funny.
I know, it's weird. It was like a cult. But I was going to say, when Kerry married my son Nathan, she had like her passion to have children freaked me out. It actually still does. And but I know it's my stuff.
Yeah.
Like her passions and what God's placed in her heart are genuine for her, who she is. But for me, if I let it come over here, I'm like, you have it perfect. Don't do any. Like when they had one, I thought, stop. I wanted to bang pots and pans at their bedroom. No more sex.
She wants to do that anyways.
Well, let's just give some context for a second, because that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. You want to bang on their door? Like...
Yeah. Well, we lived together. We all pretty much always, I think you had, a year away from us?
2, I think. 2.
2. They had 2 years.
2 of our 16.
And for good reasons. It wasn't just...
Yeah.
And it's been a really sweet journey for me. But because of her passion, I have to check myself, because I do want to bang the... No, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But I look at them and they're really super committed and they really have a calling. And so it's like, I need to step back and let God do what God's going to do there. But it's been cool to see somebody who wanted kids.
Yeah. You brought a fresh wave to the
family. It's not within me. That button is not pushed.
She's thankful she went to school to be a therapist, because she thinks I'm mentally ill. She needs to stay close and make sure she's...
Yeah, just a little context too with you, Kerry. Like we got to talk, I think it's almost been a year now, so this is nice to have a little refresher. But you've got 3 kids. You were a surrogate mother to one.
Yeah, I let somebody else's baby come and possess
you
my
must
body
be possessed.
and destroy it. Yeah.
You do have mental problems.
I had a nervous breakdown over that.
Yeah. Oh my God, I know.
Yeah.
And you guys are also in the process of adopting.
Yes.
So
See,
you really have something wrong.
They won't stop.
But you can't bang pots and pans to make that.
You have to go to Africa.
Like
That's
documents.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, you could get crazy on that. Then we would look at you and think, hey, you're...
Yeah, that'd be the end of my career.
Yeah, so Kerry, would you kind of share then like your side, your perspective, even just talking about coming into this family, what that was like?
Yeah, it's been really amazing to come into this family. They do life or did life differently than my family did. So it was kind of a learning experience for me. And they gave me lots of room to, fail along the way. But it's been amazing. Like, I'm super blessed to have married into this family, and it's just been awesome. They treat me as though I've just always been a part of the family. I'm no different. My voice, opinion, everything counts just the same. They love me. They care for me in ways that my family doesn't even care for me, my own family. And Marianne, it's been interesting to see how, because I didn't necessarily see her as a mom when her kids were little, but the way that she talks about it is just so different than I do motherhood. She was very much going and doing and with people, and I am so the opposite. So she's always like, you should do it with a buddy or whatever, and I'm like, what? Like, we're just so different. So it's interesting to see or hear that how we do it different. And I think it is helpful for me to know that there's another way and to kind of open my mind up to those possibilities. And with Melissa, I mean, she's an amazing aunt to my kids, and I probably couldn't do it without her. But her and Brian's relationship was really a blessing to me because I didn't have that relationship with my dad. So seeing that father-daughter relationship in such a close way was really, I think, healing for my heart in some ways, knowing that really is a possibility. It's not like some fairy tale, like there really are those relationships, and then it gave me the room to grieve that I didn't have that.
Wow.
And when Brian was here, it wasn't quite the same. I didn't feel like, I'm daddy's little girl, but he loved me and accepted me and always was helping, especially once we had the kids. He was, awesome. So
he was in heaven, yeah.
Well,
Maybe
not for
made it to
Hudson. When Hudson was around, a baby, he was super,
Oh, yeah.
He would walk around the house holding Hudson when Hudson was like maybe 6 months, even younger, but like not cognitive of much, right? Like he's just developing, and would be like, this is a picture frame. Right. This is a refrigerator. Like, just telling like what just normal. That would always be like, what are you doing, Dad? Just telling him what's around. Like, all right, go outside. And
I remember, like, I think it was Hudson's first birthday. He got like all these household tools, like a broom and a mop, a vacuum, because Brian would do like little things around the house all the time, and he just wanted to follow Brian around. So
he got his own
it was
tools
sweet.
To
Yeah, he got to do,
and from everybody, not
like
like from my dad, like from like
so
everybody.
Yeah, it was cool.
Oh, wow. Well, if you guys don't mind, we've talked about Brian quite a bit. Can you kind of just share like background with Brian? It's been 10 years, right, since he passed. Because obviously he was a great foundation for who you all are.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, when Nathan came to us and said he would like to get married, both Brian and I were like, oh my God. They were so little.
How old were you guys?
19.
Oh my God.
When they got married, they were
When we
19.
got married,
So when they were engaged,
Well, we were headed there the day they started.
Mm.
And it was really the only time I've had huge overt conflict with Nathan, where he was taking his manly stand, which I was not accustomed to. So that was my first reckoning with his independence and his 8 again. He's an 8 in the Enneagram. So I didn't even know I had a son that was an 8. I thought it was like a 9 or a 5. Anyway,
he faked it for a while.
And it
he
didn't
know
have
his
anything.
name for a while either.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It had nothing to do with Kerry. I mean, it wasn't like we didn't think Kerry, was anything good or bad. It was we couldn't wrap our minds around they were that old. Even though Brian and I started dating, I was 19 and he was 17. So it's not like that's a shock. But we dated 5 years, and they dated a year. So, and again, it wasn't that kind of thing. It was more like the letting go that Brian and I struggled through. In the midst of all of that, and you guys will have to help me with time frames because I don't have great memory here. So.
Melissa's got the time frame.
Yeah, whatever it is. I just know that somewhere in there, after marriage, I believe, he got diagnosed with breast cancer.
It was May after they got married, and they got married in
May
October.
2003.
Yeah.
Wow.
So at the time when Brian was diagnosed, he was sure, and I was sure that it would be nothing. We'd had plenty. I've had several friends that have made it through breast cancer without really much of any hassle. The inconvenience, but they lived and they're still living. So we weren't that freaked out about it. However, when they found it was stage 4. So that we didn't know that much about breast cancer at the time. So that kind of set us all in a trajectory of hunkering down and pulling together, I think. The kids, Kerry and Nathan, lived in somewhere else.
Costa Mesa.
We lived in Costa Mesa.
Yeah, and Melissa was...
I was turning 15 when he got diagnosed.
So she was home finishing up high school, and he started surgery and treatment. He had a mastectomy and then went into radiation and chemo, and then all that you do for that. So all of that, I feel like, changed how we made decisions, obviously. And Kerry and Nate, I don't really know how you ended up living with us then. I think it was to save to move.
Yeah, to buy a house.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it all worked out good. I thought it was fine.
Nate and Kerry lived in our garage at that time. So,
we were really hospitable.
We built them Dad built them a room in the garage.
Yeah, we really cared. Get in the garage. Anyway, I will show you. And then they moved out, and Brian, I thought we were all convinced he was pretty much moving in the right direction. All the markers had come back pretty.
He was in
positive.
remission.
And then we decided to buy a house together, Kerry and Nathan and I and Brian, and so we did that, thinking he was healed. Believing he was healed.
This was about 3 years after the original diagnosis.
Okay. Exactly.
Just so you have a time frame.
Process.
I was 18, so then they didn't need to worry about me as much.
Right. Well, you had left.
Not yet, but yeah.
But you were getting ready to go.
That September.
To do a DTS or whatever it's called. And so we bought a house together. We did I don't know, it doesn't even matter, but we bought it. And he was remodeling it, and in the middle of the remodel, he got re-diagnosed, or it was back. It was in his bone.
It had metastasized.
And so that kind of changed the game. It was a big, huge game changer. So he was able to complete most of what he started in terms of the remodel, and we had a wonderful church community that not only financially helped, but physically helped to move that along and help him out. Because he was pretty much a loner. He did it all himself. So now he had to depend on the community that we had been a part of for so many years at Inland, which were amazing. It was an amazing community, or it is. Sorry, it's not dead. But in that process, then he began to decline. I needed to then step it up and get my life in order and get a job and get insurance and make some money.
Well, and the prognosis too at that point. So at that point, they just bought in the house, but the whole family was scattered because he was remodeling. So Dad was living there. Nate and Kerry were still in a condo in Chino. I had moved in with friends because it just wasn't livable. Mom was living with her brother. And
wow, I didn't know that.
For a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a very long time, but I mean, it wasn't like years. So he gets diagnosed. Kerry's pregnant with their first. And he gets a 4-month diagnosis too, that he only has 4 months, which Hudson wasn't even going to be here yet or just be here. So it was a pretty bleak time in that regard, and we were all separated. So then it was a mad rush, right, to try and get us all back into the same house.
So that's where the church kicked in with
and
money.
So the church,
wow.
So the significance isn't just money and they helped. It was we were all spread across Southern California to some extent, and I was just barely 18. living, just I don't think I had my driver's license yet.
Wow.
So anyways, just to paint that picture a little bit.
Yeah. And so, moving that forward, we bought a house, we moved in together, we got it settled, we got things functional, and then he continued to decline. There was, I don't think he ever came back up. He just continued to decline, though we got much longer than 4 months at the time, because we actually, how old was Owen?
Owen was
Just
3
born.
months old.
We got like 2.5 years.
Yeah, he was
Wow.
re-diagnosed in 2006, and he passed away in 2008.
Wow.
So we got 2.5 years after that second diagnosis.
And it was, God. The way it went down was God. The house was set up perfectly for Brian. He had remodeled our master bath for his illness. So that everything was, I think, how I experienced it was really, really as smooth as you could have it be for what it was. And of course, I had to work, so Kerry and Melissa picked up and most of the slack.
Well, and then the time frame from there is he did decline, but he had about 2 years where he was still putting around the house. He did treatment that was really intense, that was really hard on his body. We all kind of came to him and asked him to stop that treatment because he was not himself. And so he did do that, but went to a different treatment. So he had about 2 years of like normal but declining. I went away at the end of that 2 years to do my DTS up in Boise, and at the end of that trip he like visited me 2 or 3 months into it, and then basically right after he visited me, he within a couple weeks lost all ability to walk.
Wow.
So was paralyzed. So I came home from school and didn't finish my year, and he was basically bedridden from then until he died in October. So that was April. He died in October. And Nate and Mom both were working and the breadwinners and financially providing for all of us. And Kerry and I were the ones. Kerry was pregnant again with their second. And
dear God, I tried to bang
Pots and pans didn't work.
and in May, Owen, it was due in July. So, far along. And I was home and wasn't in school at the time because I had left, and then so basically came home to just take care of Dad for those last 6 or so months with care, and so that's what we did. And then Mom and Nate kind of took the night shift, so Kerry and I kind of handled the mornings and days, and Nate and Mom handled the evenings, and worked also. Was kind of
I was employed at Inland Vineyard, so I wasn't doing just my private practice. And the church at the time too was really stressful because it had gone through a huge
Oh my
trauma.
gosh, I can't.
that same year.
Wow.
And we were trying to sustain the ship from going down, God willing, and then Brian was passing. So that was a really actually, to be very honest with you, I don't have much memory.
Wow.
So I really don't. They say things and I'm like, wait, did we do that? Like, did Dad give up a treatment? I mean, I have no clue. Because I was just trying to manage the church from sinking and assimilate in my mind I was losing my husband. So I don't think I was very present. And thank God for these guys, because I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I really don't. So my night shift would consisted of Brian of course he was in our bedroom in a hospital bed, and I was in there too, but he would be up all night, doing, he was just
on his phone.
Not well, because it had gone to his brain as well as bone. So he just wasn't normal, so he would hide, he wanted the covers over him so he could try not
to disturb Mom.
And do research on things we needed to know. All kinds of funny research, let me tell you.
What Enneagram number was he?
I wonder if he was a 5. Yeah. Came out when he was dying.
Just a little bit.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
And then he passed in October on Halloween, which we always thought was kind of ironic because he was not a Halloween fan.
No.
And
it wasn't.
And that was
it.
That was it.
Then I think really the legacy he left is how we moved on.
Yeah. Go there.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I think it was multiple, right? Like I think we all got in the process, well, at least for Kerry and I, because we were doing the days at one point, I had a really bad car accident right at the end too, so I couldn't go drive anywhere. So I was stuck at home unless I went with Kerry somewhere or someone picked me up. But with my dad being sick, I didn't go anywhere. So Kerry and I had those 5 months of like just her and I talking about how hard it was, but she also was pregnant and had a under 2-year-old at the time, and so I think that was for me anyways a sweet time for me and Kerry where we got really close, because Nathan, I was 13 when Nate got married, and they lived away, and even when they lived in the house the time before, there was sweet times like with all of us, but Kerry and I didn't necessarily have just like, it was good then, but it was just, that was a solidifying time for me and a sweet special time for me. We spent a lot of time together, and then he passed, and we all kind of went back to life immediately, which I go back and forth between regretting and thinking, yeah, that's life. None of us took a big, like, I remember that, great example. Our church has a harvest festival.
Oh my God.
And
I
back
remember
then,
this.
They used to
this
have,
might feel shaming right now.
oh, it's not shaming to anybody.
No, I'm just kidding.
Back then they had it on Halloween. Now they have it like the Saturday before or whatever. And we all went. There was a 1.5, well, Mom didn't go, but Kerry and I and Nate and not Carter and HUD, who's 1.5, so wouldn't have known if he didn't go. Like, he would have had no memory of not being there. Went that night. He passed at like 2, and we were there at 6 and stayed walked the whole thing and saw everybody, and that was, I was at church that Sunday, and I can only guess I speak for myself, didn't distance myself a whole lot from just going back to life as it was. I was in school. I had finals and stuff like that. I moved out of the house because I realized at that point we weren't in survival mode, and we had 4 very opinionated adults living in one house, and that it just was going to probably hinder my relationship with everybody more if I stayed, because I was still figuring life out. So I moved out in February after my dad died, and moved in with a friend, and have been out of the house ever since, other than like my wedding night or Christmas Eve. I'm there every night still. I make my husband's in the night still too. But, and that was good. That was, I think, the right call still.
I think it was a part of what we needed to do.
Yeah. That was life after, in my opinion, we all kind of just went back. She had a newborn. He was born in July, and it was October, so a 3-month-old and then a 2-year-old. And Nate was working, and
and I threw myself into work. For me, just a very quick timeline. For me, losing Brian was just one more loss in many. So for me, it was, you care for people that are dying, they die, and then you move on. So I don't know that my father died when I was 21. My mom died at 31. My aunts and uncles have all passed. So my daughter was diagnosed with diabetes, which was another trauma in our family right before Brian was diagnosed.
The year before my dad.
Wow. So that was hugely stressful. So I don't know. I think when Brian died, I didn't know anything else other than to just go to church and work and trust God. And so I think I have some regret. I don't know if you guys do, but I have some regret that there wasn't more a stop and time to assimilate and debrief and just be sad without the pressures of what you need to go do. So I think some of my lack of tolerance right now for certain things is I didn't take time. So now I'm trying to.
Wow.
But I didn't know that then. It was just do as I've always done. My dad was sick. He died, had a brain tumor. We took care of him. You go back to work, take care of your mom, same thing. Take care of your daughter, just do your job. And so it's weird. And I guess what I will say, and I don't know if this is premature in where we're at in this whole interview, what I will say is I felt like God gave me words throughout that time where he said that he would bring back my youth. And I thought, whatever, because I was hurting. But as I sit today and I look at what I have, and I'm not saying this materialistically, I'm saying this just as a reality. All that I longed for, I have in this moment. And all that I ever thought I should have or wanted or needed to be okay, I have in this moment. I'm free of financial burden of any kind. I can walk out my front door and drive a car that I would have dreamed to be able to drive at any given moment. I have the most amazing family that love each other, and my grandkids are unbelievably amazing. I even have dogs that are amazing. I have a home I'm getting to live in that I never thought I would ever step foot in as somebody who owned it, and it's as much mine as it is anybody's, and I'm welcomed and I'm loved and I'm respected. I have a son-in-law who treats me like I'm his mom, and respects me and values me and engages with me. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know what more I could have at this stage of life. So I don't want to die tomorrow because I don't think I'm done. But if I did, I would say I would die happy and content. Not so content with the world situation, and not so content with how we don't love as Christians, but content with everything that I ever thought as a human that I needed to have. I have. So everything else is, I mean, it's beyond what I thought. I have icing on the cake. So I don't know if that's premature. You can
No, that's great. Well, I think obviously, and as you said, testament to the graciousness of God. But I think there's also something to be said of like even what you're talking about as far as you letting yourself process and go to those places. Like, I just, for context, I don't know that I'll keep this in, but like I came in and started to get to know Melissa probably more accurately like a year or two later. When was that?
It was about a year after Dad died because I moved in here. You weren't here, so 2 years because you weren't here when I moved in. Because I lived with Bree for context for 3 years.
So I was at the same church, and we were in community. Melissa was a youth leader of mine. You had counseled me many times, and so like I knew your family, but I didn't know your family. But so hearing about this from afar and then coming in after the fact was really humbling. But I feel like our families had the privilege of being able to like be with you and like see how you handle grief and how you process that. And it's like, I would not be who I am, like at all, like not even close. My whole family, like we would be a shit storm, like seriously.
Leave that in.
Well, I think we actually are a shit storm because of you. No, in a really good way, because we didn't talk about anything, right? So, we would even joke. You guys joke about death and like morbid stuff all the time, and we were like, oh, okay, like this is very uncomfortable. But now we can, just little things like that, even like. So just as a testament to
I was there for you guys.
Just as a testament to your legacy, Marianne, and how it's affecting like probably the whole world in a lot of ways. And I remember actually, and you can talk about this more. I think, Melissa, you told me this picture, or maybe it was you. I don't know. One of you told me.
And make it up if we didn't.
Yeah. I'll make it up. Yeah, this actually happened.
We'll back your play.
Yeah. No, this picture, it just speaking to Brian's legacy too, because I have been affected by him, whether I know it or not. Like, even if I only remember seeing him, once in a while. But somebody said, you're going to remember this and you're going to have to say it because I don't want to butcher it. But it was something like somebody got a picture of him and him touching certain people's lives, and then it kind of being a ripple effect and like a domino effect throughout the earth.
It was a word, I think, that somebody...
No, it was in the letter he wrote me.
Oh, okay.
So he wrote me and Nathan a letter before he passed, and in my letter he talked about what he felt like God spoke to him years ago, which was that he was going to be a pastor, and it never happened, quote unquote. And that was really hard for him, and he wasn't a big like why God person was part of that. And so then when he was diagnosed the second time and we didn't know how long he had, I had decided to go away to school for a year and take that risk, right? And so in that was the first time he felt like he did the like why God thing, and he felt like God brought to his attention the fact that he had pastored, and that the people that he pastored were me and Nathan and Kerry, Nate and Kerry, who were raising their boys well and in general, but also loving Jesus, and me, who was choosing God over staying with my dad, and mom, who was a pastor, is a pastor, and that like he kind of lived out the as for me in my house, he'll serve the Lord. And so, you know, he might have pastored 4 people, but those 4 people have 3 more people, and however many else I could list the people that Nate and Kerry have touched through their baseball life and all that, and other people at our church that they've touched, and people might go, my Lord, the list that my mom has touched, I can't imagine. And so
good and bad.
probably that's true for us all, I would assume. And so like that, I don't know if that's what you're referencing, but it was kind of his own words, where God kind of was like, I did make you a pastor. I made you a pastor of 3, and then they've now expanded that out, right?
You know, I don't know how many people know about the Enneagram that'll hear this, but he was a 5, so he was introverted for sure. And I was thinking how in our home, we always had somebody living with us. They're just, and when we decided to buy a house together, Kerry's, you can speak it if you want to. What was your request of me? One of your boundaries?
One of my boundaries was that no one could live with us. Like, that was it.
That's so funny.
Okay, so but what's
someone's
cute?
Always lived with us.
Yeah.
By Kerry's own.
I mean, I didn't even move into the house before someone else was.
Oh yeah, Eric lived there.
Was in the house before I could even move in. I couldn't move in right away because Brian, part of the reason he got re-diagnosed was because he had shingles, and I was pregnant, so I couldn't be around him, and he had already been in the house, so I moved in with my mom. That was fun. But Eric Heiliger lived with us then, and then
your brother
Pam lived with us. My brothers, both my brothers have lived
and
with us.
And Kate and Eric for a little while together, like her brother and sister-in-law.
Luke.
Oh my gosh, you literally
so many people have lived with us.
Yeah. And what cracks me is none of them like were mine.
That's so funny.
Yeah, no, were you calling and begging?
You and Nate came to me. Kerry and Nate came to me and said, "Hey, can we let Pam Twyman? We think we should have Pam Twyman move in."
So now you guys know why I really moved out. Well, and then to that accord, I think that's a legacy my parents did too, because Tim and I, my husband and I, have been married for coming on 5 years, and of those 5 years, we've lived alone for the first year, for 3 months in the middle, but then have essentially we had Bree's husband living with us when he first moved to California, which was great. And then we had about a year there where we didn't have anyone after he moved out. And then we've had someone with us now for almost 2 years. Yeah. And it's just normal to us. We get asked all the time, like, don't you guys want? We're like, no. What do we do with the space?
Well, even your husband, Tim's family had people living with
yes,
him
he
too.
also grew up that way too.
Yeah,
that's true. They constantly had people.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So you were talking.
Well, but Brian was an introvert, so that was like not his highest and best. You know, he wasn't always thinking that would be a fun thing. But because I think he had that heart of service, it's like he couldn't have said no to people. But I just think it's so cute because I don't think you knew you had that in you.
No, it was so foreign to me. That's not how I was.
Yeah.
I grew up. I mean, even when Nathan and I were dating, it's a big joke that we have with each other because my family didn't have a lot of money, and Nathan worked, and we would hang out at my house, and we would go to the store and buy food. And one time my stepdad got really mad at him for getting into the refrigerator to get food that he had bought. And I mean, like, so they were like total communal living people, always in the picture, and my family was like not that way. Like, no one lived in the house. Don't go in my refrigerator. It was kind of cold. So it was, a big learning experience for me. But I mean, now I wouldn't do it any other way. but it is not always easy. You know, Nathan and I talk about how it sometimes feels like you're living in a fishbowl, especially in regards to parenting. Or
sorry, I don't bang pots. I just glare.
She does have a look.
I tried.
Or marriage, like you know, if I'm crabby or he's crabby.
Well, and your
people,
marriage family therapist added on to that. Yeah.
Right?
Actually, just pastor.
Yeah, well, pastor. Yeah.
We had to have some, conversations, some come to Jesus moments, and some boundaries, and
We did get in one huge fight. I don't think we've had any other fight than that one.
No, it was gigantic.
It was beyond.
I wasn't there, but it was real big.
It was so terrible, which we don't have to go into all the terrible. But
well, it was in October.
We don't
now
talk to each
we
other.
know we don't do anything serious in October.
Because Brian passed away.
Yeah, Brian
There's
passed
just
away in
like a
October.
weird feeling that even if it's not like we all are just a little edgier, and so we're like, oh, no big
emotions are
heightened. It's like not even like I know it. I'll just all of a sudden be like,
it's
not
October.
okay, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, we're in like October, so even September sometimes. And we usually say that in like till January. That's usually like our.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. It's like the beginning of the
holidays.
Like,
It's
so
the rule now.
So we mind ourselves.
So you guys had a big fight in October.
Yeah, it was a huge, awful fight.
Well,
It was bad.
and I think it's the fishbowl thing is true. Like obviously, I feel that I don't have kids, but with living with people and being married, like I feel that too. Especially when like we're fighting over the dishes, so we're having a war over I'm not doing the dishes till you do the dishes because you're trying to do the dishes, and you have a roommate and you're like, sorry, the dishes haven't been done yet. Like, and then I'm like, but I also realize like our roommate, both times our roommates have been single, not married yet, and I just think that's
cool. Yeah,
I have to imagine like whether I've watched many relationships where I've gained both like, wow, you handled that really well, and I want to know how you did that, and wow, I don't want that to be my relationship, and so I just don't, not that that's wrong, I just don't want that, and so I don't want to do that. So with that, Nate and Kerry, I have always been in and out of their house because they've lived with my mom, other than your first year of marriage and then that one other year. But so I've always been around, and I've seen a lot of their marriage and their parenting, less impactful because I don't want kids, but still impressive.
It is impactful though, because you're like, oh hey, Kerry tried
well, to
this,
be fair,
and I'm like, oh, that's genius.
Yeah,
like,
for you, I said that makes sense. And and it was impactful in like, oh, they're really good at this and they really love it, and I really don't want to do it. And they had 3 amazing boys, and that I am in love with, and I don't want my relationship with them to change. So there's a part of my lack of wanting to be a parent is that I know if I have kids, I spend less time with these 3 kids that I adore, and I selfishly don't want to give that up at all. The oldest is 12, and I'm like, oh, he's going to start hating me. Like, I bought gingerbread houses today, and Tim's like, let's just not do it. It's so hard for you to find. And I'm like, this could be the last year Hudson wants to participate. Like, at any moment, Hudson could bail on this stuff, and I'm not ready, so no.
That's so weird.
But with that, on the marriage side of it, I have learned, like, with you being willing to be in that fishbowl, learned so much in how to be married and what to do and how,
and especially what not to do.
Well, and even in the like times where it was fighting and it was maybe not like you guys felt embarrassed, I think my parents did this too. The nice part about that was when Tim and I fight and it feels really hard, it is like, oh, but we can get through this. Like I've seen my mom and my dad, I've seen Nate and Kerry get through really hard moments, or really if they feel shame, like knowing in conversations like, oh, I was really embarrassed by that, even though I'm embarrassed, like I know we'll be okay and we can fight through this. And there's like, so like walking into that fishbowl is, I know, hard, but just as like here's the really benefit good. Right, that I got married 10 years after you guys did basically, and it's been huge in the development of my relationship and how we go through life. And they've done multiple marriage courses at our church, and because Nathan and Kerry were leading them, Tim and I were like, yep, we'll go. Like great. Like they are going to be real and vulnerable and honest about what this is and how great it is and how really hard it is. And so anyways.
Yeah, and I think that whole communal living, it's hard for the kids. I mean, as the parent, the matriarch or whatever, that's not as hard for me because I still think I'm the boss. Like, that's just what you, because you'll see.
I don't even live there. She comes to my house and she's like, let's do this, let's do that. I'm like,
now that's an addiction I have. That's different. No. But I do think that your kids are always your kids.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of work in your own character to release and understand they're not kids. Yeah. And if they choose to whatever, that's their journey with God and with what they're doing. And I don't get to be a part of that. Nobody was with me. My mom lived with me, by the way, until she died. And she didn't try to intercept my growth. Or,
that generation was real good at that cutoff, right? Yeah. Like, if you're an adult now.
And I'm not. I think everything I have to offer is she's waiting with bated breath.
Your generation and the next is struggling with that more than the previous generations.
Yeah. And I don't know what that is. And I work hard. I don't think I'm always successful. I think I worry if they're not okay, I'm not okay. That's
Nate
my
Kerry
codependency.
Or Nate and Kerry fighting.
Well, I'm better now. I hardly ever say that.
I know, but the first 4 years of their marriage was a constant question to me. Are they fighting? Can you hear if they're fighting?
Oh my God. See, that in our house, it's like that thought
funny.
is going along in my parents' heads, but they'll never actually say
Well,
it.
and I remember at some point.
Which they would say yes.
And I don't know if this was when I got married. I don't think it was. I think it was before. I think it was after I moved out, and she would say something, and I'd be like, probably, but they'll be fine. Who cares? Like, if they're fighting, and she had to get there, right? Of realizing, her and her husband fought, and they were okay, and it's just
it's just that tension. Yeah. And if they're okay, I'm okay. And of course, that I target my son. There's a target on his head. So Kerry can do no wrong, basically.
It's true for both of her children,
to
be
fair. That's true.
Just kind of awesome.
I know.
The in-law.
I know.
Except for that one time.
Tim and Kerry.
That one time. Oh, Lord.
And I don't even know what happened.
Tim and Kerry make out in that scenario.
They do. Because
They don't make out kissing.
No.
I'm sorry. That's just where I went.
Let's clarify.
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, and nobody wants to know.
Yeah.
Keep that one.
It's not happening.
But I do think that I think there's things that I get to keep learning, even though I'm old, and you would think I could chill. I still have to learn that, and really watching both of all the kids are mature and responsive to growth and change. It doesn't mean it's been easy and isn't painful, but I don't see any of the kids that I'm connected to not saying we want to grow. We want to get it different and better. So I don't know. I don't think you could ask for better in anything. I'm never looking for someone to do it great. I'm looking for them to care that they could
do it better.
Grow.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's a testament to my mom. I always say if my mom did it right. If I had to raise kids, whatever. Yeah. Not that there wasn't mistakes and things that we've worked through, but the two things that I think, I'm sure there's a million things that I think she did very well, but the two big ones that always ring out to me that I feel like she did well was I think she constantly showed her vulnerability. Mm-hmm. So even if she handled something poorly, she always, and this ties into the second one, she always came back, at least speaking for myself, with an apology if it was something that needed one, or cleaning it up, right? I always saw everything through to the end. So there was never a moment, in my knowledge, ever a time where an issue happened and she got mad and said something she regretted or whatever, or I did something wrong and she was mad and it just didn't go, communication doesn't go well. I don't ever remember having a time where she didn't ever come back and clean it up, whether it was her needing to apologize or us just talking it through for 6 hours. Sometimes that happens because I wasn't very talkative as a kid. Yeah. I would shut down. That was my power play. And so I think that was huge in even the fact that Nathan and I want to continue to grow, right? We saw a mom who, that's all she did her whole life. That's all we ever saw. We might have saw the worst versions of her, but we saw her work towards the best versions and own those worst versions and how they might have affected us negatively, and we've processed through it, and stuff still comes up, but I'm sure, but I just mean it's constant, right?
Yeah.
Like we are dealing with our own stuff that Nate and I aren't aware that is an issue, and it then brings up whatever. But I think those were like
when they tell me I never cooked.
Don't say they. That's a hot button. That's a Nathan conversation, not a Melissa conversation. And so, but it's funny because then there's the other thing that I think she did really well. She didn't cook a lot growing up. She was in school. She was working full time. She was doing a shit ton. So I didn't care that she didn't cook growing up, but I didn't miss out on that skill set. I cook and I bake.
Totally.
She put people in our lives that gave us things that maybe she didn't have we were raised by our parents, but with the community. So I had an aunt that I baked with every Thanksgiving, and we made pies, and she taught me how to bake and taught me how to cook and whatever. Like I am not without in any of those things that my mom maybe didn't provide. And I can't speak for Nathan if he feels that way. That's just how I feel. He just likes to tease you.
That's actually a really powerful point, because to like have people that are going to give to them something that I can't give. I think that is so powerful. And that's something that most of the moms I've talked to so far have said is like, yeah, man, like community is the biggest part, because you're not going to be able to give them everything. I think it's designed that way. Like God designed it that way, that you wouldn't have to give it all to them. Yeah. So I love that you brought that up. That's really amazing.
No, it's a huge part of, it's another reason why I don't want to have kids. It's not because I don't want to have to depend on other people. That is fine.
I think you've made it clear it's my fault.
No, but I think no, it has nothing to do with you. The same thing like with the boys. Like Uncle Tim and Auntie get to be. We play Fortnite with them for 2 days straight, right? Like that's just not something mom and dad do, because mom and dad have 80 other things to do. Where we can take a weekend away and be like, yeah, let's just play Fortnite all day or whatever, and then feel really bad about it. But I know. I just feel like, I'm rotting their brains. But I like being, I like that role, right? And again, you lose that. You just lose a part of it when you have your own family to care for, which is totally normal.
Totally.
Yeah, and I think my kids grew up, there wasn't anything we didn't do with my friends. There just wasn't, we just did community raising. So husbands went to work more or less, and when you guys were young, it was the moms got together and the kids played, and we made a crap, who knows? It was all kinds of stuff. We went to the beach, we flew kites, we got things going, but we didn't do a lot of the sports. We didn't do a lot of the extracurricular like piano, though my kid they did, but that wasn't the priority. The priority was us getting together as moms and watching the kids have a blast. So found the person with the pool, then we go there. Found the person with the trampoline, we go there. Not everybody had a pool and a trampoline, so we had to kind of go around. Cool. We shared. We shared, and so you were raised by a ton of people. Every church. I don't remember ever going anywhere with just us. No. It was always the Deckmeyers. We went down to Seal Beach, and Deckmeyers came, or even when I would spend time with my aunt. Me and my aunt rarely hung out by ourselves. We went to her friend's party with their 17 kids that I didn't know, but it was just what it was. And I think some of the pushing on Kerry is that, right? I'm saying, well, let's invite 12 people over, and we'll get this done, and it'll be really fun. And she looks at me like, you are crazy. And I'm like, it's just, that doesn't appeal to you.
Yeah, no. I'm much more independent.
My God.
Well, and for me, I don't have it with the kids, but I don't like that either because of lack of control.
It's
more of a control issue. It's like, no, it's going to take me longer to do it myself, but it'll get done exactly the way I want, and I won't be frustrated because someone messed it up. Like, that's part of my not doing that kind of stuff with other people.
I do feel sad for, I live with Nate and Kerry, and I feel sad that, because I can get home at 10 o'clock at night and have a party.
I know. You guys are crazy.
I know. It's like, let's watch
the estrogen army, we call them.
Yes, exactly. And I think it sometimes gets a lot to handle. In the new house, I think it's easier because there's a whole house upstairs.
Yeah.
And I live downstairs, so it's like there's a little bit more separation in some ways. But I think that's hard too. Like we're just so different. So then, I'm imposing on Kerry, well, do you mind how about if we, and I'm not saying you mind it or you don't, but you always have to make a decision. It can't just be like, I got up this morning and I don't have to think about that stuff because I'm banging the pots, saying, do you mind if I, whatever, take down this or put up that, or what if we move this over here? So clearly I need to get a life.
Well, it's not inconvenient at all, or, like we don't hear your parties. And we're glad that you have the space to do it. And I mean, even in the old house, we didn't hear you. It didn't bother us. So
that's nice. You work it out, huh?
Yeah, it can be worked out. We're working on it.
Yeah.
Of course, if they kick me out, I know I'll be coming here.
I know
you do usually.
It's so funny.
True. Yeah, you're moving out, so I'll
I
move
know.
in.
I know.
And then I'll start remodeling again.
Yeah. To be fair, my mom probably dig that.
Yeah, probably.
She wants
have
that
a good time
anyways.
for a while.
Yeah.
And she tried to tell me no sugar.
And brown bread.
And brown bread. I'll be back to brown bread.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I'd never heard of that brown bread thing.
Oh yeah, if you sent your kid to preschool with anything but brown bread, you were scorned.
Is it like the hippie kind of?
Yeah, it was
era?
just you got to do healthy. Everything has to be homemade.
So this whole health thing isn't like it's one of those things,
Oh
right?
yeah,
it's
we're
like
cycling.
Cycling through.
Totally.
Cycle
We're almost
back.
out.
Yeah.
We're almost out of it.
Gotta make it through next.
Praise God.
Next
Back
season.
to Twinkies.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
no, that was bad. It was bad. So I got home fried bread. That was brown.
That's so funny.
I was gonna out you on that, but I didn't. I was like, I'm not gonna say what kind of brown bread we had, but I'm glad you did.
It was fake. It was fake brown bread.
And the crazy thing is I didn't mind it as a kid, but I don't eat it now. But occasionally I'll be like, oh, peanut butter and jelly on that home fried bread.
Yeah,
Man, it's
yeah.
That's so funny. Oh man, I remember Melissa, you and I talking, I don't know, a couple weeks ago or something. You brought something up. This is more like a public service announcement kind of thing. Because
I don't know, I forget.
Me too. I'm like,
Oh my god.
What'd she say?
No, I just think it's like a funny, but actually seriously.
I'm like real nervous.
I'm sure she can edit.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's nothing, but
No, I thought it was really good. Like there were a couple of times, like you told me about how when you get home from someone's house, your mom would say,
Oh yeah.
Did anybody touch you? Did anybody touch you?
I talked about another thing that I feel like you did really, really well. Although my aunt,
No, this is so important.
I know my aunt tortures her about it because the one time my aunt heard it, I was like 14, and it was about like kids at youth group, and it was a very specific person, and she's like, did so and so touch you in like anywhere inappropriate? And my aunt was like, oh my god, and I was like, but for me it was pretty normal, and I'm sure I leaned into my aunt.
Normal that she asked you the question.
Yes, normal that she asked me, not that I got
Let
touched
me just
inappropriately,
say.
and I didn't, by the way. But no, I realized when I was talking to you about it too that I think you did it more than I even remember. I only really remember as a teenager. But I think back, I was thinking back on like people's houses that I stayed the night at and coming home from there.
Yeah.
And they had older brothers or just people that, mostly it's when they had older brothers or any man, even the dad, like living in the house. And I didn't have a whole lot of friends, so it wasn't like there was a plethora of people, but it was always a very casual conversation about, it wasn't, I never felt until that one time, but like, and my aunt, again, I think blew it out of proportion. Otherwise I don't think I would have thought anything. And she always just would ask, like, did anything inappropriate happen? Did anybody touch you where you shouldn't have been touched? And I was blessed that never happened. I never had that experience. But I think what I value about it, and I think was wise, is that if I had, and let's say the first time I didn't say, it always gave me consistent opportunity to say that it had. Right? Like there was, and it was started, I think, fairly young, meaning like there's a story about when I was like 2 or 3 and they had given me a bath at my aunt and uncle's with my parents there, and I came out like in my towel, little girl, and my uncle was there, and I looked at him and was like, you cannot touch me in my whatever, I don't know what I said.
You pointed.
in this spot or whatever, and pointed, I'm assuming to my vagina,
to my brother Mike.
To my uncle Mike, who is like the most reserved, quiet man. Kind, like so sweet, never, it was,
he was like,
and I love it. And he was like, I've never, he freaked out. I swear. But so clearly those conversations started very young, letting me know, but it just made it normal, right? So when I would come home and mom asked me, it wasn't like, I never even raised a red flag that she knew something that I didn't, if she did, right? That if someone that I was around was unsafe, it never, because she just always asked me. Yeah. So if she asked me, and because my mom was in the line of work that she was in, as I got older, like in the last couple of years, I've realized, I wonder if sometimes she'd ask me when it seemed weird because she knew something I didn't. And...
Well, I wouldn't have let you go to any place like that.
Well, but you know what I mean. But you could have found out later and then asked me is what I meant. Like, I don't mean, obviously. But, anyways, so I just thought it was, the way that you did it was really smart. And I think again, thank God was never in that position. But it allowed dialogue for it to be a normal conversation, and make it seem like something that it was always going to, so I just imagine that if something had happened and she was consistently asking me even about different scenarios, that it seems like that door would have been easier to walk through than if I had to just come out and say it and tell her or tell somebody.
And I would say too, the inappropriate wasn't because it was a male. It was anybody. Yeah. And it wasn't always because it would be sexual. It was anybody treating her any way that was inappropriate. That's good. Now, the interesting part that I can confess is that did not occur to me to say that to my son. So there's clearly, back in the day, was a divide between my son being fine and the female being protected. And that's to me is, now at 63, maybe that should have been a question I should have been asking Nathan, just equally caring and concerned about it. But I think because he seemed male, he not seemed male, he is male, because we have grandchildren, I know that's true.
She wasn't sure in the beginning, though.
I know. But I'm just saying, it's interesting that I came out of the era that men or boys are just going to be okay. Yeah. And the ones you have to protect are just the females, and that's not true.
Yeah, those questions need to be asked.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really good.
So, and regardless, I think the way that she did it it made it normal. So it just didn't I just don't ever remember it feeling weird and like, why is she asking? Where I've had friends who I think at one point, I think a friend was around, or I'd maybe mentioned it to them, and they were like, your mom, what? That's weird. And I was like, it didn't even seem, I was like, my time was just
opened the door.
Yeah, and I just,
that's really good.
And while I hear what you're saying about, you didn't ask Nathan, he was blessed to not have anything like that happen to him, but I also have heard him tell me stories about, my mom would, if we were hanging out, she would ask me, did so-and-so do anything to your sister? So he knew, or he felt protective of Melissa, but it's also given him like this amazing ability to relate to our kids and to bring that same comfort and normalcy to conversations like that, where huge. I don't feel comfortable doing that, I or capable. A lot of times it's very normal, even though we have boys, he's asking them and he's creating a really safe place for them to come and have conversations about something that's uncomfortable or could be
And the great thing about that too is they've done it, you guys have done it so well, where they will do that with anyone they feel comfortable with, meaning I don't think they do it with just anyone, but I think they've had conversations with us, not that anything's happened, but they tell us things sometimes and I'm like, I would have never been that open to tell my aunt and uncle really that and I think we've put time and effort into our relationship, but you guys have taught them who the trustworthy people are and that we're safe people, right? Like there was nothing that happened to them, but there was just something changing in our family as a whole, and they just were very talkative about how they were feeling about it and what was going on, but then they felt bad because they were like, oh shoot, we're not supposed to talk to anybody, and I just said, like, I think mom and dad will be okay that you like talk to us about it, And they were like, oh, good. And they just kept sharing their heart and where they were at with just the change that was happening. And I think that is, you know, really both powerful. You and Nathan obviously teaching them, like, these are safe people and so.
There was something specific that you said, Melissa, and I don't know that you said this, but it was like, you'll have to like repeat it, but it was in that same line was, no adult will ever ask a child for help.
Oh, Aunt Marty told me this, and every time she tells us the story, there's part of it that feels like genius to me, that like what her mom taught her when it came to like adults and like inappropriate behavior with a kid, to some extent, obviously there's layers here, but it was like, no adult is ever going to come to a child and say, help me find my dog, help me find my whatever, help me find, like, or how do you get somewhere? Do you know where, like, no safe adult is ever going to ask a kid for advice or an opinion, really which I was really, like, that's so much broader than just like, no, don't, if someone wants to show you your puppy, don't go. Or, but I was like, oh, that's smart. Really like back then, right? They walked home from school at longer days, so there was all these reasons.
Miles and miles through the snow in California.
Well, Aunt Marty has like a story about how it was like through construction when they were redoing the freeway, and that was specifically why she brought it up. Is like, no adult is going to come to you and ask you how to get to or find my dog or, and I was really like, oh, that's like a nice. It's just another layer of like, oh, that is a way.
Well, too, because I would imagine like most parents are trying to raise their kids to be polite, maybe not talk to strangers, but not to be rude. But even if you get older, having that in your mind of knowing like nobody's safe, no safe adult is gonna like come up and be like, hey, can you help me?
And it's trying to teach them to critical think a little bit too, right? Totally. Like not just think, well, they didn't say puppy.
Right.
So it's like, well, wait, why are they asking me?
Having
like,
that broad. That's very good.
Say puppy, so it's okay.
They said cat, not puppy.
Right?
Exactly. Like, and I think of like my husband, who I don't know if he would have done this, but he's so literal that if his parents had given him something that specific, and I don't know that they did or didn't, he would have been like, well, they said puppy, but they said cat, so I'm go. Like he was so letter of the law, not spirit of the law, that was, I think, why I think of that being smart.
That's so funny.
I think you have one of those too.
We do.
At least one.
Well, thanks, guys.
Is that a wrap?
I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Please share this with a friend if it impacted you in any way, and leave a review on iTunes so other mamas can hear the truth, that they are enough and they are doing their very best. Be sure to catch up on what's happening in the Mommispace community every day on Instagram at Mommispace. And you can email me at mommispace@gmail.com for questions or interview recommendations. All my love to you, Mama. You're amazing. See you next week.
Just to say that I'm the one you love. It's so like you to do the best for one, the best for love. It's so like you to do the best for one, the best for love.